Welcome to our weekly Pnimis HaTorah podcast. Not sure how Pnimis we're going to get to tonight, but well, we may not even publish, so we'll see. The tonight is Haid Shebegvura. Haid Shebegvura is what is Midas HaHaid? Midas HaHaid is ultimately the a tachlis in itself. It's the ultimate avodah. All comes down to Haid. Thankfulness, gratitude to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. All our avodah ultimately is to come to Haidat HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything we do is ultimately to come to this Hakara that we are HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Everything, He owes us nothing. And this fuels our entire avodah. We mentioned many times from Mesilas Yesharim in Zerizus. A person needs something to inspire him to be a Zariz. So you have to have the midah of being moided HaKadosh Baruch Hu. In l'chakal adam chamatziv shehu, she'en lo al harbe l'haidos l'HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That is this midah of haid, which is a midah that when you incorporate this midah inside yourself, you find yourself being purified from all your nasty midas. Because people tend to be dragged down by their ritzonos that are outside of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Welt. And Mela, they don't appreciate what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is offering them. They're looking for all the sorts of chitzonistic things that are not really part of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's world, and they're there to avoid. They're either there to be a distraction, to rise above those distractions. So the midah of Haid, when you connect it, especially when it's Haid Shebegvura, which will say it is a Haid with midah Gvura is
fierce.
Ultimately, well, Gvura is ultimately the midah that's mitzamtzim, right? So Haid is actually Haid and Gvura both kav small. They're both din, right? Because Haid is ultimately how you might HaKadosh Baruch Hu when you're mitar yourself from everything else, right? So then you're focusing on what you have. So midah of Haid is being able to be mitzamtzim your outlook, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's Welt, and rule out all the chitzonistic of the world. So Haid, Shebegvura, both of them are midas of ruling out, being mitzamtzim yourself, being mitar yourself. And if you look at the tefillas Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana of tonight, right? Tonight is the word of Taharenu, right? So Gavenu Taharenu Naira, right? So tonight's Taharenu, if you notice in the Sphere Saimer. So tonight is midah of Haid, Shebegvura, and it's Taharenu. And the best way for us to, in this star shuffle, to be matar ourselves and to focus on where we need to be is we have to learn from tzaddikim. We have to learn to be inspired from people that have accomplished great things, and we may imitate them like monkeys, but better than imitating the
actual monkey.
Better than imitating all the supposedly successful people of the world. That's what everyone's imitating, right? Everyone's trying to.
At the same time, everybody's trying to be unique, which is ironic.
Right.
You can dress just like that guy, but you want to be yourself.
They see this guy. He seems to be unique, so I'm going to mimic his uniqueness. So that is. So we'll talk just a little bit about Divrei Chaim. Divrei Chaim, his yard site was this week. I was reading up a little bit today, actually about the Divrei Chaim in Bosner Shul. I took out the Sefer Avodas Havodah. You'll enjoy it. Avodas Havodah. They wrote up the shmuzim of the Tasher Rebbe. So when you read it, when you've seen the Tasher Rebbe, you know who he is, Lamaisa. Right, and then you picture him telling you this. There's certain Ehrenskeit, there's certain Edelkeit to the Tasher Rebbe that when you picture the Baal Memra as you're reading his Sefer, because they just wrote up what his Divrei Torah. I've just found it very enlightening. The Divrei Chaim was born Ayidei Bracha from Ramoshe Mipremishlan. Ramoshe Sefer. There were two Ramoshe Sefer. Not Mipremishlan. Is Mipremishlan? Pshaversk, maybe. His father, Divrei Chaim's father, was married for like 15 years, didn't have any children. He was going on business to a certain shuk, and he took a lot of money to paying cash for all the goods. And on his way, he stopped off by Moshe Pshaversk. There's two of them. There's the first one. And when he gets there, he sees that the Rebbe is a tremendous amount of doichik. His daughter got engaged, and he has nowhere to turn to make the chasna. He emptied out his wallet, he canceled his business trip, and gave all the money that he bought for inventory, he gave to the Rebbe. And the Rebbe gave him a bracha. You lit up my life, you're going to have a child that's going to light up the world. And that was the Divrei Chaim. Divrei Chaim was most famous for giving away every penny he had. There's no such thing as a Divrei Chaim having a penny in his pocket by the end of the day. Or by Shachris. At night he had to make sure everything was out.
That's where he came from.
So this Tasha Rebbe Zustellt, his midah of total Ibegegebenkeit. The Klal Yisrael, that was his Yitzira. That's where his Yitzira came from. But that's what Sanz is famous for. Sanz is famous for this Avodah, this total hefkeris. There are many, many stories about Divrei Chaim, about how his son comes to the house and he sees the Rebbe sitting there without any boots, and he can't go to shul. He says, "Where are your boots?" He said, "Well, Sonny came in 5 minutes ago with tattered shoes, walking in the snow. His feet were frozen. I gave him my boots." He's like, "Oh, so he had to have like a closet full of boots for A guy came there after a child, and he had given out all the money for the day. He took his chassid shas off the shelf.
And he had tremendous foot issues. Limp, and he had foot pain like crazy.
He took his chassid shas and loaded it up on this guy's. The shas was gone, So, interestingly enough, my wife Zayda, Reb Chaim Gelb, who's actually named after Divrei Chaim, I'm sure he was, because he was born in Garlitz. That was the Rebbe, was the Baruch Ben Garlitz son of Divrei Chaim. This was his meat. He gave everything away. And he was a Hesed Sanz, a Chassid, a Kleisenberger Chassid, and he gave everything. He left nothing for himself. He was once, he lived by his daughter, and once he was like in the hospital or something, and a guy comes knocking on the door, "Where's Reb Chaim?" He's not here. How can I help you? I'm here for the check. What check? He said, "What do you mean? He gives me a social security check every month." She was like, "What? You take a social security check?" She could not believe that he's giving away a social security check every month, And then this guy's how can you take my father's social security check, But he gave away everything. That was a Chaim Gelb named after Divrei Chaim, I'm sure. I had a funny ma'aseh. We when I learned Mila by Yossel Weisberg, he was the. You heard of Yossel? Oh, you know Moshe. You met Moshe, yes. I learned by his father. I know Moshe. So Yossel was a Hesed Sanz Chassid. So we used to talk about Divrei Chaim all day. The Chatzkel Shinover used to sit, and so I was like all excited about Divrei Chaim. Really about Yossel. All right, I was going to send them some stories. I didn't end up doing it. And they put it out in the paper, and they asked anyone has stories. I wrote up a couple pages, and then I just didn't end up doing it. Anyway. So, I was very close to Yossel. There was no one closer in the world, literally, than myself to Yossel. I can tell you stories. I don't want this being publicized, but we'll talk about it privately, our wheelings and dealings. But, so I was very excited about the Divrei Chaim. He used to talk about it. He also wrote Sfarim about the Divrei Chaim. He wrote some storybooks about Divrei. He liked to write Sfarim, Yossel. He wrote about Divrei Chaim. So we had when my Arla was my wife was expecting Arla, we were thinking about it. If it's going to be a boy, what would we name him? So I said, well, we're all excited about Divrei Chaim. We name him Chaim after Divrei Chaim. We already have a Chaim, right? We name a Chaim after the Zayda, Chaim Gelb. And I said, hey. And Chaim's named after the Divrei Chaim, because Chaim Gelb was surely named after Divrei Chaim. He was born like 10 years after Divrei Chaim was nifter in Garlitz, and the Rebbe over there was the son of Divrei Chaim. So that was like an interesting zach. But the Divrei Chaim had a ma'aseh hazeh. There was a lady in town in Sanz who was a big Baal Tzedakah. She was a big asking. She used to raise money. And people that were in very dire straits, they would come to her, and she would help them out. So the Divrei Chaim told his gabbai that when this lady comes to the house, when she's collecting for something, she needs money, just let her in. So this lady had direct access to the Divrei Chaim. One evening, she comes to the Divrei Chaim, and she tells him that there's this family, and this family I need to help. It's a terrible massive. They have no wood for to heat the house. It's freezing. There hasn't been any food in the house for a week, and there's children and the wife and the husband's a huge Talmud Chacham, but their mom should stay. So the Divrei Chaim, he reached into his pocket, and he had whatever it was, a couple $100. That was his final tally of the day. He handed everything in his pocket. Okay, he's closed out his accounts, for the day. He gets to shul the next morning, and he starts davening, and tzigay nisht. He's not connecting. It's not going. So he starts thinking, did I miss a penny? He starts reaching his back. Did I miss a quarter someplace? There's something. Do I have some money on me that I didn't give away that's holding me back from connecting? Right? Meaning giving away the money was his way of unloading from Olam Hazeh. And once he's disconnected from Olam Hazeh, so he starts going to his pocket, trying to figure out what's going on. And he doesn't. He gave away all the money. So what's holding him back? So he quickly runs home. He starts looking, and he starts to look around. Maybe he left something in, someplace, some money in the house he forgot to give out. He comes home, and his wife is sitting there. It's Erev Shabbos, and she's cooking for Shabbos, and there's a certain and the house is full of food, and she's cooking, and she's all excited. He said, "Where'd all this food come from?" So she says, "What do you?" She says, "Oh, this tzaddik is the lady that collects money. She came this morning, handed me $300, and quickly ran out to make Shabbos." So next time this lady came to him, he says, "What's going on here? You told me you gave it to me." So she said, "I didn't lie. I told you exactly the truth." I said, the house is freezing. There's no food in the house for a week, and the husband's a huge Talmud Chacham. He says, "You pull that on me again, you're gonna lose your access to me." You know what I'm saying? But that was the avodah of the Divrei Chaim. That the word is that just the nekuda you see from it is it's a midah of chesed ad ein shir. But it's also recognizing that kol zman I'm mekusher to Olam Hazeh in some way, my avodah is not going to be the same. And his hiskash to Olam Hazeh was so sensitive that he was affected when there was such a slight hiskash to people. I always say like this. You have a person that's a very wealthy person, and he walks down the street with a certain ego, a certain air, a certain ego, right? What's he picturing as he's walking down the street? What's giving him, right? He sees his bank statement in front of him. You're right, or he sees his buildings. He's walking, and literally, it says it's a person's his assets are called hayikum. Right, the Lashon Chazal say it's make him adam al raglov. It allows you to stand up, but it's not only it doesn't allow you to stand up. Mean to support yourself, right? Right, that's what it means to support yourself, right? It also is by people that are connected to it. This is their whole ego, is it? And their fear of losing the money is not so much that they won't be able to to buy the most expensive cuts of steak and fly to the in first class. Their fear is that this is my whole existence, right? My whole existence is this, because they're totally mekusher to that aspect. And by the Divrei Chaim, if he had 5 cents left in his pocket, this was a kesher that was too much, and prevent him in his avodas Hashem. I'm not sure what how to tell us in Parshas Shmini over here, but what can I tell you about Parshas Shmini? Maybe just one nekuda. Just maybe on the same idea, is that kumtais is that a yid is be'emes naturally connected to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. However, when you have something, a mania, that's cementing you, that's making you stick to Olam Hazeh, this prevents you from blasting off. If you get rid of those those manias, so you naturally connect. That's the side of a yid. A yid is a bria that HaKadosh Baruch Hu made in Olam Hazeh, that is put in Olam Shafel, but has this magnetic connection, this magnetic force that draws him to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. That's what a yid is. And then when you find out when you uncover those manias and you separate from it, so then Memela, you Avodas Hashem becomes very natural, and the simcha and the dveikus comes very, very natural.
It's like holding a ball underwater. The moment that you're forcing the ball to be underwater, the moment you leave go, it flies out.
So the lashon is, what's the lashon? It should be the Rashi over here. By the parsha, it has all the machals asuris nevelis and shkotzim and these things, right? So the lashon of the pasuk is, let's see, just looking for a specific Rashi here. Yeah. Well, the end of the pasuk is Viskadashtem Yisim Kedoshim, right? Ki Kadosh Ani. Right? So the word is that if you're not mitami your nefesh, you're by default kodesh. Right? It's a very, very inspiring thought, right? That you don't have to do anything to make yourself kodesh. You just have to not be mitami yourself, right? So if you're not mitami your nefesh, is kadashim. That's what Rashi says. The beginning of the pasha, zois hachaya shatoichlu, you call it behema shel haaretz. It's like Rashi. Zayis hachaya, lashon chayim. Lefi sheYisrael dvukim b'makim v'rum liyos chayim. Klal Yisrael naturally davar to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and it's very befitting for them to be chayim, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is makar chayim. Lefichach hivdilim min atuma v'gazal leim mitzvos. Umas ha'olam lo yasa klum. Umas ha'olam, they could eat all this stuff because it's not staring at anything. They don't have this connection. A yid is naturally mekusher. He is chayim, and he's davik b'chayim. And Mela, for us, it's very necessary to have these restrictions to keep us away from things that pull us away from connection to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Just on the Idach Isa, it's just a few years with the Maisa. The Ribbon says, he used to go around Russia, he used to go shechting chickens for people that were totally fry. And he would go shecht for them, and he would give them the chickens at cost. And not only that, he would defeather the chickens for them. So normally you would have to pay someone to defeather it. So he would throw in this added bonus. So it was most kedai to get kosher meat from him than to go buy not geshachten meat. And so he would go around traveling to where the Yidden were, and he would give them seldom kosher meat at cost. So someone asked him, like, what are you doing? How often can you get to any individual town to supply kosher meat to Yidden? And they're eating treif, the kalim are treif, and they're eating treif, 95. Like, what are you accomplishing? And his response was, he says, you don't verstehen. When a yid eats kosher, right, it makes such an effect on his nefesh. It's not upset you eat kosher, and okay, I didn't eat treif. When you eat kosher, it's making such an effect on the kedusha in you, right? So when you eat kosher, there's a chiyus in kosher that is mitar the yid this one time that he eats it, and he wants to provide, just like to go around put tefillin on one time, eat kosher one time. It's going to have it has this kach to be mitar. It's to kachenu tarin and noira, sagvenu tarin and noira. To be lahidus lahalakadosh baruch hu mitach chavas hadas and bracha v'atzlacha b'yas kol tzedek. I get Shabbos.